Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody in modern drummer world. Hello, everybody all over the world. This is Charlie Benante from the band Anthrax, and I hope everybody's having a great Friday. I hope you're looking forward to the weekend. I see my good friend has just joined us. I wanted to blow him up a bit and
You still
just give
can.
a. All right, I'm gonna just a couple of things about the great Chris Jericho. He's currently signed with AEW. Okay, I'm sure all of you know this, but he's well known for being with the WWE, the ECW, and the WCW. He's known as one of the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. He has won 30 championships between WWF, WWE, WCW, ECW. I mean, the guy is just a legend. And yet he finds time to front his rock band, Fozzy. So without further ado, I wanted to bring out Chris Jericho, who's already out here. Hi, Chris.
I'm here. Yes, great intro. Thank you.
Yeah, I wanted to blow you up a bit because you don't get enough of that.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's always cool, man. And it's funny because I just watched your Instagram live that you did last week with the guys from Quarantine. So I didn't realize that this was a regular thing for you. So now you're a host as well. Congratulations.
Well, thank you. Yeah, Modern Drummer. I love those guys, and when they asked me to be a part of it, I said absolutely. Let's do it. Let's just have fun. Let's talk to people that are interesting and that have done things during the whole COVID quarantine, and let's see how it goes. And so a lot of people like it. So I was like, well, since we talked to Joe and PJ from Quarantine, I said we have to talk to the ringleader. See how I kind of tied in the wrestling ringleader?
Nice. Perfect.
So the first thing I want to ask you is, what was it like putting that all together, the whole Quarantine Jam thing too? Because I mean, you guys had songs that were in rock radio.
Well, what happened was and you were a perfect example of this, Charlie, with what you did with your Silver Linings record and just getting people together to play. I mean, we're musicians. And musicians like to play with other musicians. And because we didn't really get to play with our own bands, we're all stuck at home. It was kind of time to branch out a bit. And so I have a friend of mine for a few years. His name is Kent Schluscher. You know Kent. He's the drummer for Luke Bryan.
Yeah.
And obviously Luke Bryan is a stadium-level country artist.
Enormous.
So Kent is kind of, living high in the hog, playing those stadiums, and you know how great that is. And then suddenly it was taken away from him as well. So he just sent me a drum lick from a song called No, No, No by Kiss on the Crazy Nights record. And he just sent it to me. I said, oh, no, 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 what are you doing? Honestly, he's a huge 80s Kiss guy, so am I. So I knew instantly what it was. And I said, what are you doing? He said, oh, me and my friend Joe are just putting this together. And I didn't realize that Joe was Joe McGinnis from Kiss 78, who
Right.
you were a big fan of.
Yes.
And you actually told me about them. And coincidentally, so did Paul Stanley one of the times, name drop coming, when I was at his house, of all places. And Paul played a live, is it Kiss 78 or Live 78?
Classic 78.
Sorry, Classic 78. Sorry. He played Classic 78 for me. And he's like, check this out. This sounds just like us. So I knew Joe from that, and I said, do you need a singer? And they're like, absolutely. Do you know a bass player? And I just happened to do the Jericho cruise with PJ Farley. He played in
Trickster.
We played in Trickster, but on the cruise, he was in a band called Rubik's Cube, which was like a really cool 80s tribute band that Steve Brown had formed. So I kind of had PJ on the brain. He's a super cool guy, as you know, because you played with him as well. And I said, well, PJ toured with Kiss. He's kind of got the vibe. Let me ask him. And he was totally in. So we recorded this tune, No, No, No. And you know me, man, I don't do anything half-assed. So I said, well, let's take it to fucking rock radio and see what's going on, because nobody was releasing any new stuff during the pandemic. So let's see what happens. And suddenly, I remember Boise, Idaho was the first station that had us.
Yeah.
And then suddenly we were at it all across the country, and it got to number 25 on the Billboard charts.
I saw that
right there. Yeah, actually, it's not like Billboard made that. Joe actually made it and sent it to us.
Did he really? Oh,
Yeah,
I love it.
but
I love
yeah.
it.
So we actually ended up getting a top 25 song from this record that we put out just for fun to see what would happen. So it was a really cool development for us.
And it's great because, like you mentioned earlier, it kept us entertained, but it also kept a lot of people who are missing live music and just missing new music. It kept them entertained and it kept them coming back. And that's one of the reasons why I actually put out the record, because I would never intended on putting out Silver Linings. They were just being done to help my depression,
Right.
getting through the dark days of COVID. And I know some of the guys that I asked to do it were going through the same thing. So for you guys, I know you did No No No. You did two other songs after that.
Yeah, we did another song called. See, once again, the idea behind Quarantine, and that's Quarantine with a K.
With the K.
Right there. I
Right
happen to
there.
be wearing that shirt. Was just let's just do all 80s non-makeup Kiss, because if you're a real true blue Kiss fan, and obviously you're a true Kiss fan from like a certain era, but we're Kiss fans from every era. We're like the ultimate fan of you put it out and we'll listen. And we said the 80s Kiss era is kind of a little bit, underrated even by the band themselves, because those melody lines are so high and they just don't play a lot of those tunes anymore. So we thought, let's do No 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 from Crazy Nights. And then there's a song called Heart of Chrome from Revenge,
Right.
which is one of my all-time favorites. Now, No 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 was very hard for me to sing because it's a Gene song. So I never really rated it until we did it. And then I listened to once again, Gene's, his instincts as a musician are different level. He's very much singing, not even in time. He comes in on the offbeats and you have to wait to get into it. And he'll throw little, but not where you would think. And, his melody lines in No 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 were different every verse. And usually as a singer, it's the same. So that was a hard one for me to do, whereas Heart of Chrome is a higher range. But I knew that song because I'm a Paul Stanley guy. So we did that one, and then we did another Gene song called Love's a Deadly Weapon from Asylum.
Right.
So we kind of we'll continue to put them out once in a while. We thought about maybe having a live gig here and there once in a while because it was fun to do. Like as you know, it was just fun hanging out with these guys, and they came to my house kind of back in February. It was Joe's first trip out of New York since the lockdown, and they came to my house and we filmed the video for Love's a Deadly Weapon. So it was kind of a release for everybody, especially for guys like Joe, who hadn't even really left, and Kent as well. They had done a few things, but most of them were just stuck in their houses. So it was a good release for those guys.
Yeah, I mean, you picked guys who are well-rounded musicians too. Joe is such a great musician.
Yeah.
He sings great. He has his own solo career that is completely different from the stuff that we know that he does. But Joe is a
Right.
great musician in his own right and great artist. Same with PJ. PJ put out his solo stuff and really broke out of that whole mold from the trickster days. To someone who is a great artist as well. So it's always intriguing how we all find each other some way or another,
It really is, and to the point where PJ is now in Fozzy. We asked him to join us, and it's even the fact that he played with you. I was like, only the pandemic would allow the drummer from Anthrax, the bass player from Trickster, and the guitar player from Rob Zombie to be in a band together. Like that's
It's great.
what we did. Yeah, it was and one step further, we did the Wheel Blocks thing we did Aces High, and that was with Phil Demmel and Johnny Christ from Avenged and Nita Strauss. And we did Aces High, and that one got to number 20. So actually, within the course of this pandemic, I had 3 top 25 songs with 3 different bands. Because Fozzy had a top 10 right at the beginning of the pandemic. So only the pandemic would allow you to do these things. And I thought that was kind of one of the small positives about that, is that it really forced the creative people to be creative. And you can still succeed even with all of these shackles that were put upon us.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, we don't just make music, we entertain. And then, when you come back from a tour, you're completely like just depleted. You're just done. And then by the first or second week, it's like you get that, I should be doing something. You know what I mean? I should be going on soon. That type of
Right.
feeling. So this whole year and a half was a very strange one. And like talking to other musicians, some developed certain weird ailments that happen. Did you
Yeah.
find any of that to happen to you with your voice, with just feeling different?
Well, what was cool is that for AEW, we still worked throughout the whole pandemic. We were based out of Jacksonville because the owner of our company owns the Jacksonville Jaguars. So we had a venue to work out of called Daly's Place. It's actually a concert venue where bands will play. So we were still working on that side. But what quarantine and wheel blocks allowed me to do was sing in a different range, because Fozzy were much more, there's a certain way that you sing for kind of, for modern rock and radio rock, shall we say, and the way that the producer kind of worked with us. Whereas wheel blocks, I mean, dude, I'm fucking hitting that C, I think it's a C sharp or whatever the hell it is that Bruce hits at the end of
Yeah,
Bruce's High.
that's high.
Yes, and there was no studio tricks on it. Like, I practiced that for a week, and my wife was like, "You sound like you're killing a cat. Like, stop it." I was like, I just can't seem to get to this note. How am I gonna? First of all, how the fuck did Bruce do that? For so many years in early in mid '80s on tour, and I thought, wow, like, and if I can't down tune it, because Maiden fans, if you're gonna, you guys know this, if you're gonna cover a Maiden song, you better do it right, or just leave it alone.
Exactly.
So,
Exactly.
so when we got in the studio, that was kind of the first thing I said, let me try it right off the bat. And lo and behold, I hit it the second try. And it's like, I'll never do it again. I hope you enjoy it. But it was like, that helped me sing a different way to keep myself in shape by kind of expanding. I mean, the range is there, but when you don't get a chance to sing that way, you might not get to work those muscles out. So doing those songs, it really helped me kind of keep my voice in shape in a different way. So that was cool. I think more than anything, and you'll appreciate this, Charlie, is that I've never spent so much time at home in my life, so it drove me a little crazy to not be on the road. But after kind of the initial shock wore off, suddenly being at home with my family and my kids, it was great, because and you have your daughter's pretty much the same age as some of my kids. It's like, this is their kind of golden era to be with us at home, Like, my son will be 18 in September, and 6 months after that, he's out of high school. He's gone. Like, who knows, right? So it was,
I know,
right? So it was good to be at home with them during this time frame. And it also made me realize, now that we're going back, like, these 4-week tours of Europe that we used to do, it's not necessary. And it's not going to happen anymore. Like, it's too much. It's too much to be gone when you have a family, and it's not necessary. So I think once we kind of got pulled kicking and screaming out of this habit of touring, you realize that there's certain things that are kind of important. And yes, we should still go on the road and travel the world, but we should probably balance it a little bit better. And that's something that I definitely came to terms with and fully embrace.
That's such a great word that you use, balance, because sometimes we're so programmed to keep moving on, keep doing it,
Right.
because you always want to strike while the iron is hot.
Yeah.
But it's so refreshing to hear you say that, because I know you work a lot
Yes.
with the wrestling thing and with the Fozzy thing. So
Right.
and that's one of the reasons why I called my record Silver Linings, because I found silver linings in all this darkness. Like you said, you're home with your family, you're home with your kids, you're seeing them every day. And it's like, there's a relationship right there that sometimes we miss out on having that relationship. So it's really important. And I'm glad that, I'm glad a lot of people did that during this time. Once again, Chris Jericho is here. I am Charlie Benante from Anthrax, and we are just talking about life and Fozzy. So I want to go into Fozzy's first record was out in '96. Now you guys were just
2000 was the first one.
So wait, the first Fozzy record, I thought the covers record was '96, um, and then Happenstance came out.
Yeah, the first one was in 2000, and the funny thing is, we were signed to Megaforce Records by the same guy that signed Anthrax to Megaforce Records, talking about Johnny Zazula. And it's so crazy how it was, because basically what happened was that I've been playing music since I was 13. I was always in bands, and I kind of was looking to wanting to form a band in probably about 98 or 99 or so. And I just, typical thing, ran into Rich Ward at a church picnic and asked him if he wrote songs. Not quite
But
that.
but Rich at the time was in Stuck Mojo with
Yes.
Frank.
Yes.
Okay.
Frank and Rich were in Stuck Mojo, and they were doing some work with WCW, which was the company I was working with at the time. And Rich was backstage, and I just met him. It was just a kindred spirit, and kind of told him I was thinking of starting a band. And he told me that he had a covers band based in Atlanta. For whenever they were home, they would play these cover gigs. And Atlanta was a real scene at the time. Seven Dust was there, and Clutch, and Crowbar, and all of these types of bands. So whoever was in town, it was much like Metal Allegiance, what we did with Metal Allegiance, where guys would just get together and play some gigs, and it was called Fozzy Osbourne. So
Right.
that was kind of how it started. I came in and we played a couple of gigs as Fozzy Osbourne and played covers. And then because of who was in the band, Rich and Frank from Stuck Mojo and Chris from WCW, is actually right into WWE when I started there. We got signed sight unseen by Island Records, and Chris Blackwell was actually involved. And so was Johnny Z, and so was Maria, who I think you still work with Maria to this day. And that's how it all started. And I remember Johnny thought this thing was going to be fucking huge. It was almost like the original Steel Panther, in that we had a backstory, and we had a mockumentary that we filmed that played on MTV like tons of times.
Yes, I remember this.
Yeah, so that's kind of how it all started. And then we realized, like, this is actually pretty good. And we've got some good stuff here. And that's what we thought, well, maybe we can do more than just be a cover band, and maybe we can do some originals and see how that goes. So that's kind of how it all started.
So I mean, basically, we've known each other for quite a while now.
Yeah.
And I remember when was the first time that we met? It wasn't in Europe. I think maybe it could have been in LA.
Yeah. I mean, we like the first time I really remember, and we were laughing about this the other day. If you guys have been watching the Anthrax documentary episodes, which has been great, by the way, I'm tuning in every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, like at 12:01, getting ready to watch it. There's a show that Scott mentioned, in you guys were playing radio festivals on Volume 8 and starting to play in front of bigger crowds. And one of them was in Chicago. Rammstein was on it, Living Color. And I remember I think I might have met Scott once or twice somewhere, but that's the first time I ever remember seeing Anthrax. And I remember it was like Reservoir Dogs, because I was actually there as the host. I was one of the hosts.
You were the host.
Yes, and you guys were walking across the parking lot, kind of in a line, like Reservoir Dogs. And I remember as you started getting closer, thinking, "Holy smokes, these guys are all short. These guys are all so short. I never realized it. Like you're probably the tallest guy in Anthrax. Like everybody was like Scott, and I was like, wow." But that's kind of when I remember us kind of talking a bit. And then I would see you guys everywhere, because I was really involved with the Golden Gods and at NAMM and all that sort of stuff. But I remember that was the first time that we ever really connected and had a conversation, was in that.
And it's so great because as soon as something happens with the Beatles, one of us texts the other.
Yeah.
Did you see this? Like the other day, you texted the thing about Ringo.
Yeah.
And the picture of Mike with Ringo, and then I have the story with Ringo at the Grammys that I accidentally knocked Ringo's glasses off because we were all on the red carpet and Ringo was behind me, and then we had to wait for the artist in front of us to finish the interview. So I was a nervous wreck because Ringo was behind me. So I got the nerve up to say, hello, Ringo. And I put my hand out like this, and Ringo doesn't shake hands.
Right.
Ringo, does this. So he did that. And when I did it, I hit his elbow, boom, and it knocked Ringo's glasses off. I was so embarrassed, dude. But his wife was laughing, and Joe Walsh was with him, and Joe
Yeah.
was laughing, and Ringo laughed about it too. And I thought it was like a scene from Help. I was trying to kill Ringo or something. But what's some of your favorite Beatle moments?
Well, when you're talking about, and that's actually another reason how you and I got pretty close, Charlie, was Mike told me that you were a big fan, and we started that text group, and that's kind of was how we became really, really good friends, because that
Yes.
led to other conversations and all that sort of thing. So I think for the Fab Three, which is what we call each other, me, you, and Mike
Right.
Portnoy, we did a great episode of Talk is Jericho where I said, this is Fantasyland. The Beatles, George and John, never died, and they reunited in the mid-'90s somewhere around Woodstock, the Woodstock revival, and then we put together our ultimate Beatles set list. So from a fan standpoint, that's still one of my favorite moments. But I mean, favorite moments as a music lover, or favorite moments personally?
Any encounters with the Beatles?
Yeah, well, so my famous one is when Ringo got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I know she's not working for him now, but she was high up working for Jan Wenner, and her family were big wrestling fans and big Chris Jericho fans. So I happened to meet her at the Garden, and she said, "Listen, if I can ever do anything to repay," because I'm always nice to everybody, fans, especially kids, as are you.
Always.
And she was like, "Listen, thank you for meeting my kid. I work for the Hall of Fame. If you ever need anything." And it just so happens that was the year that Kiss was going in. So I went with my cousin Chad, and we went and saw Kiss get in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And we had so much fun. We said, well, let's go every year. We'll make it like a annual thing for me and him to go and hang out. So we went 2 or 3 years, and then the one year Ringo got in. And we're allowed to stand on the floor because Betsy from Rolling Stone gets us those passes. But there's nowhere to sit because you have to pay like 10 grand a seat to be at these tables, right? So we were in the back, and we kind of had to be walking here, walking there. And I noticed, though, when bands played, everyone stood up, and no one knows who's supposed to be where. And my cousin is on it. We've been doing this for years. So as soon as everyone stood up, it was during Green Day, I said, let's go to the front. Because we had seen Paul and Ringo and Olivia, George's widow, and Yoko at the very front on a table. So we walked straight to the front. I remember I saw Dave. Hey, Dave, how's it going? Dave Grohl, Kid Rock, what's up, dude? And, people kind of staring at you, but you just act like you're supposed to be there. How's it going, man? Good to see you. They don't know who you are. And we went right to the front, and once again, I'm standing right behind Paul and Ringo. And it's like there's energy. He's just fucking godlike,
I know.
And so when it was, and Green Day was doing American Idiot, and it goes da 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 da, hey, and everyone's going hey, and Paul's doing it too. He's super into it. Hey, hey. So when it was done, he starts walking down towards the bathroom on one side of the tables, and I'm like, here's my moment. And I'm walking down the other side of the tables. So we finally meet in the middle. Oh, wow, Paul. Nice to see you here. Wasn't Green Day great? Oh, they were great, man. It was awesome. And I'm trying to think of something witty to say. He had a security guard in front of him. And I said, listen, I see you got your security guard in front of you. I said, I'm behind you. So if any ninjas come to attack you, I'll fend them off. He's kind of looking at me like, all right, man. And then I go, high five, Paul. And he high fives me. So go to later on in the night after the show is done. We go to the after party. And Paul is sitting with Joe Walsh, who you mentioned, and their wives. So Paul gets up to grab some cheese off the buffet, and everyone comes around to kind of bother him or whatever, right? So I've done this before. I did it with Bill Murray. I actually did it with Lars before we were friends, where I'll go up and say, dude, do you need help with these people if you want to get out of here? So I go over to Paul and I said, listen, everyone's bothering you. If you need help, I'll help you, get you out of here. And he goes, listen, who are you? Are you a cameraman? Are you security? Who are you? And I said, oh, dude. He goes, listen, If I need any help with the ninjas, I'll let you know. Until then, I'm cool. You got it?" And he was nice, but he was like, I think he started thinking some kind of stalker. And all I could think of when he said that was like, fuck, you remembered the ninjas. My line worked.
That's awesome. And then where did it go from there? That was it?
That was it. Listen, I was like, he's had enough of me. And, you know, that's cool. It's all good. But he actually, it's funny because the next day I was watching CNN or Fox News or whatever about 20 hours later. And here's Paul and Narita in Japan. He flew to, like, he left from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, went to, I'm assuming, some kind of private jet and flew to Tokyo. And this is only 2-3 years ago. He's 73, 74. So he stayed up at the Rock and Roll till 3 or 4, probably went to the fucking airport and flew to Japan. I'm like, once a rocker, always a rocker.
Always a rocker.
Yeah.
My time with Paul, I had saw Paul years ago at a VH1 function, but never got to talk to him or anything like that. Just saw, waved, that type of thing. And then a couple of years ago, we were at the Grammys, and I took my daughter to the Grammys. She was about 8 at the time, 8 or 9, and she was all dressed up and everything. And during a performance, she said, Dad, I have to go to the bathroom. So I said, okay, let's go. I'll take you. So I take her to the bathroom, but you can't leave until there's a break in the show, you know? Right. So we had to wait in the wings. And as we're waiting there, I see Paul McCartney come walking out from the backstage area. And I was like, this is the same day as Ringo, by the way. And I'm like, oh my God, it's Paul McCartney. And he's getting closer to us. And then he sees my daughter and he stops right in front of us and he bends down and he's like, oh, look at you. And he pinches her cheek and he starts talking to her and he's having a conversation with my daughter. And I'm just like, oh my God, this is so amazing. And then he's talking to her and he gets up and he's like, and this must be Dad. And I'm like, hey, Paul, nice to meet you. Blah, blah, blah. And he's like, oh, yeah. And he talks to us for a bit more. And he was just so nice, just so genuine. It was like such a great experience. And then that was it. She had to go to the bathroom, and that was our Beatle moment. But after that, later on, she said to me, Dad, that was the cute Beatle, right? And I'm like, yes, that was the cute Beatle. So great Beatle moment.
It's cool. I love that sort of stuff because, I mean, listen, we have some modicum of fame. And there's a lot of people that know us and want pictures and autographs. But when you get to a guy at that level, it's a completely different animal. Like, I'm pretty famous in my world, as are you. And
You're
love
very
the fact
famous.
that he has no idea who we are. And that's the best thing. And to take it even further, probably the biggest heavy metal band in the world, Iron Maiden, on a worldwide basis. Adrian Smith told me that he met Paul once. And at some London classic rock Grammys or whatever, and somebody said, oh, yeah, Adrian's, in a band too. He's like, what band are you in? He's like, oh, I'm in Iron Maiden. And he's like, oh, you're the guys with the monster.
It's the monster.
He just knows that Eddie the monster is the Iron Maiden guy. But it's like, oh, the monster band. I'm like, that's awesome.
But it's shocking to me because back in the day, Paul knew everything about it, every band. So does he know more about Iron Maiden, but he just won't give it up?
Yeah, I mean, you can't be, a musician and not know who Iron Maiden is, even the name itself. So I think at times he probably plays that, I'm not really too sure it is, but he's got to know who Iron Maiden is. I mean, that's universal at this point, especially if you're a musician from England, where they're playing fucking, the O2 Arena. You can't not know who Iron Maiden is.
Exactly. I mean, Maiden headline Download.
Sure,
Maiden headline Donington.
Yeah, they played Twickenham Stadium before, which is a football stadium. So he knows who Iron Maiden is, I'm sure.
Yeah, and he knows who Chris Jericho is. You know that. So the thing I want to ask you about too is we're going to be doing some festivals coming up. And you're going to be doing some too, and we're actually on a few of those festivals. Now, since I know you've been doing select shows here and there, Are you looking forward to getting back out and doing, consecutive
Oh,
shows back to back?
absolutely. And we haven't done selection. We did a handful of shows last summer. And then I had my 50th birthday party where I set up like a stage in my backyard and we played that. That was, beginning of November, but that was the last one. So we did a live stream like you guys just did, and that
Yeah.
was fun. So we played that. But yeah, I'm really excited. Like I'm a super huge numbers guy. Like I'm that guy. Like what's Wildwood, what's Iowa City at? Let me know right now. Has Belvedere, Illinois done any better? That sort of thing. And I kind of eased off the gas for a while because our tour got postponed 4 times. And I was like, well, why don't we just cancel it? It's like nobody wants you to cancel because nobody's handing in their tickets. Everybody's just waiting. Like we'll wait from April of 2020 all the way till, October of 2021. People have had tickets for that long. So I'm excited to go back out again, be around the guys and just play. That's how all of us are out of gig shape. You know what I mean? Like
Oh, I know.
we just haven't done it. So I'm really looking forward to it, man. And like when I see these numbers and they're all really good, we put a tour up on sale for the UK last week. It's the biggest advance in the first week we've ever done. So it's a combination of people wanting to go and do stuff and the fact that over the last year, our band has still continued to grow. Our new song, Sane, was the most added song in Fozzy history. It cracked, it's at number 25 in 3 weeks, which usually in 3 weeks we're in the 50s to get to the top 10. So there's a lot
That's
of buzz
awesome.
about us now, which is cool. So I'm excited to get out there and reacquaint the people that might have not remembered that with Fozzy again.
That's great. That's great because I just can't wait to see the faces.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And you know what I mean? I can't wait for that meeting again that we get to do this and we just feel it. I think that's what I'm most excited for. And I say that, the first show that we're playing this festival next week in Wisconsin, we have like an hour or something set. And I said, I'm going to be so excited that I'm going to finish that 60 minutes in 30. Because I'm going to be so excited. Yeah, this is great. I want to shift gears really quick and just mention your dad,
Yeah.
Tim Irvine. Now,
Ted.
Ted Irvine.
Yeah.
Sorry. We were talking a while about you. So you were born in Canada.
I was actually, so my dad played for the Rangers. Okay.
I know
Yeah. So I was
that
born,
that.
I was born in Long Island, and my parents were both Canadian. So I was born in
Right.
the States, but my parents are Canadian, and we would go there on the off season until my dad retired when I was 7, and then we lived in Canada again full time. But in that time
Now,
frame, I lived in New York for 5 years and St. Louis for 2.
so I thought the story was you were born in Canada and then moved to New York, Long Island, and then moved back to
Yeah.
Manitoba.
No, I was born in Manhasset, Long Island.
Wow. So I was born in the Bronx, which is basically over the bridge.
Right.
And that's so awesome when you told me that, because I never knew that. And the Rangers was such a huge part of that New York sports,
Yeah.
thing. And either you were an Islander fan or you were a Ranger fan.
Yep.
And how was that growing up? I mean, to have your dad, be a professional hockey
Well, I mean,
player.
it's funny because I'm sure you have this with your daughter. Like my son now he's almost 18, and my daughters are almost 15, and now they're starting to figure out that like dad does some pretty cool shit, and he knows some pretty cool people. Like when I, was hanging out with Mike Tyson or hanging out with Shaq or Snoop Dogg, they're like, Snoop Dogg? I've known Snoop Dogg for 10 years. He's awesome. Like they're starting to go like, oh, wow. Like they were watching Scream the other day. They went through a big Scream phase where they watched the 4 of them in a row. So I called David Arquette and asked him to leave a video for them. And he did. And they were just freaking out. Like, how do you know David Arquette? I'm like, dude, he's been a fan of mine for years. Like, so for me with my dad, it was the same. When I was a kid, he was just my dad. And I
Right.
vividly remember going to practices with my dad at 4 or 5 years old, and there being mobs of people outside with him signing autographs. and some people asking me for my autograph because I was Ted Irvin's son, and signing like an X because I didn't even know how to write my name. You know what I mean? So now, when I got to be about 18 or 19, that's when I realized that this is pretty fucking cool. And now, with the advent of YouTube and the internet, I can go find my dad. And my dad was a pretty, he had a lot of notoriety because he was a fighter. He wasn't a
Yeah.
goon, but he would be called a power forward today. He had 4 20-goal seasons and would fight anybody on the checking line. If you had a guy like that in this day and age, he'd be making $10 million a year easily, and every team would want one. And he had that with
Right.
the Rangers. So whenever I go back to, the Garden, for example, there's still people working at the Garden that were working there when my dad was there. And hey, how's Teddy Irvin doing? He's my favorite Ranger? How's he doing? I still get that to this day. And it's a real New York thing. You don't get that from a lot of different cities. But if you can make it in New York, like Frank Sinatra said, you make it there, you make it anywhere. And people don't forget. They remember. And that's pretty cool that you still have these guys that are the ushers at the Garden asking how's Teddy Irvin, the baby-faced assassin. He's awesome. So
Right.
it's pretty cool. Yeah.
So, I mean, so your dad is a professional hockey player,
Yeah.
and you get hooked on wrestling, and then you started wrestling in Canada, and then what was it? Because you have such a thing for it, and just to see you up there. The first time I saw you up there, I was just like, this dude is just such a star, But I know you busted your ass to get where you are. So what was it like in the early days of doing it?
Well, I mean, it's like I said, I was playing in bands when I was 13, and I decided that age I want to be in a rock band and I want to be a wrestler. Those are just the two things I was always attracted to. I was never good at hockey, so we never really focused on that. But that's kind of what I put my mindset to. And when I first started wrestling, back then it was about the really big guys. And I knew I'd never be the biggest guy on the show, but I could have the biggest personality and the biggest charisma. And I channeled all of the great rock and roll frontmen. That's what I wanted to be, a rock and roll frontman in wrestling. So you're talking Paul Stanley and David Lee Roth and Mick Jagger and Bruce Dickinson and all these type of guys. All that came from those guys, and just like working the crowd and leading the party and being the host and being over the top. I remember my very first interview. It's called a promo in wrestling. My very first promo I ever had on TV. I had been listening to a David Lee Roth radio special when A Little Ain't Enough came out. And he said something like, there's a fine line between a pat in the back and a kick in the pants, so let's dance. Like total David Lee Roth, right? So I said it in my interview, and it didn't make any sense, and it sounded really stupid because I was trying to be – it worked when David Lee Roth said it, but I'm not David Lee Roth as a 19-year-old kid. But still, I was trying stuff like that and realizing, you got to be ready to just go out there and be a character. And that's really helped me when I first started out, because it got me through – in the first few years, I worked Canada, then I was right into Mexico, then I was right into Japan. My first tour of Japan, I was 20 years old. So it's
crazy.
But it's similar to you guys. I remember seeing Aardschok America, if you remember that magazine, of Metallica.
I do.
Metallica being in Japan in 1986 or something like this. They're 22, 23 years old. I'm sure you were the same age when you first.
Yeah.
You're just a fucking kid.
I know.
Think about that, man. With our kids, when we were 21, we were touring the world. That's a lot of pressure for a young kid to have and handle. We're lucky that we did as good as we did, and that also explains why a lot of our brethren didn't do so good, because that's a lot to have to handle in a short period of time when you're so young. But that was what
I know. But the thing I always loved about you is your drive and your passion. When we talk about the things, we'll talk about the Police, the band, the Police, and you and I could spend an hour just talking about the Police, and it's so passionate, and we have exactly. So I get so excited when you'll text me, hey man, you want to do a show on the Police? We'll do The first album versus
The fifth album, yeah. Yeah.
synchronicity. So I'm like, of course, let's do that. And that's the thing I always loved about you. It's like this guy is like he goes deep. It's not just like some people they just say,
Right.
oh yeah, I love that. No, you love it and you get it. That's the thing I always loved about you. And it's the same thing how it's your connection with the fans in wrestling. I mean, I think that's the reason why they love you because it's sincere, and
Yeah.
it's the truth.
Well, and that actually what got me a lot of respect when I first started Fozzy, because as a wrestler, a lot of people were demeaning of it, like, oh, what's he going to do? But the guys in the business always had respect for me because they knew that it was legit. Like, I used to write a column for Metal Edge magazine with our great friend Paul Gargano.
Paul Gargano, yep.
Yeah, and that's when I got a lot of people. Like, I remember Mustaine the first time, and I was like, I didn't know who you were, but these columns you're writing were so detailed and such, obscure stuff that only a true fan would know. I couldn't help but like you right off the bat. Like, there was a lot of people that were like that because there was this guy really knows what he's talking about. And that's why, bands like Halloween, like, they're at their biggest again now with this new record. Those guys are super friends of mine because, like, you always supported us, like in the 90s and 2000s when no one knew who the hell Halloween is. Next time we headline Vakken in front of 100,000 people, we'll get you front row, seats and that sort of thing. Because it was real for me. Because I respect all of those bands and appreciate their lineage. And it's the same in wrestling too. I don't know as much about the history of wrestling, but I respect everybody that ever did it before me because you have to. That's how you learn and how you get better as a performer now, is looking at the guys that we appreciated and what they did.
Right. I often get offended when people diss the history, or there's you can't diss a band
Right.
because you think they suck. That band may have been the reason that your favorite band is
Yeah.
your favorite band. And it bothers me sometimes when people do that. Oh, they suck. It's like,
Yeah.
no, 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 no.
Yeah.
I mean, look, we know there's bands out there that suck, but but there's a reason for that. But yeah, dude, it's like it's something that with music, I always try and find something in that it's like, okay, well, I get that. I get what they're trying to do here, or that's a really good hook. You know, the
Yeah.
first two Def Leppard records for me are my favorites. I wasn't such a big fan with Pyromania and then Hysteria, but I appreciated them, if you know what I mean.
Yeah,
Oh,
I mean, and that's the thing too. Like you're totally right. When someone says I like this band, I never, like, when I was a kid, you go, this band sucks or whatever. Like, I remember thinking like, oh, Duran Duran sucks when I was
yeah,
a
yeah.
kid, just because all the chicks love Duran Duran. Meanwhile, now you look back, Duran Duran's fucking great. Like, they wrote all their own shit. They're great. John Taylor is a great musician. I mean, there's
Yes.
just, what's not to like about them? And I always try and, like, I went to, and you did this too. My daughters were really into 21 Pilots. So
Yes.
I went with them to take them there, and we didn't go there with like oh, this is going to suck. I went there with, what is it with these guys? And dude, it was one of the best concerts I ever seen. I think you and I even spoke. It was
We did.
AC/DC level. Like, this is,
Yeah.
what do you mean by this is one of the best concerts I've ever seen? Oh, how can that be?
And
They suck. And like, they don't suck. They're very
they
fucking
don't
good.
suck. And
Yeah.
the thing I loved about that was like they thought outside the box.
Right.
They did
Right.
they did things that we would have never thought of. And I was just like, wow, I'm sitting here going, this is next level. And look who just popped in, Chris.
Whoops.
He's looking the wrong
Yep.
way. Classic
He's looking
Frank.
the
Look
wrong
at
way
the
though.
Classic Frank made his entrance.
There we go.
Hey Frank, how are
Classic.
you? How are you,
I'm
man?
good. How are you?
I'm good. Well,
Thanks for having me.
Is this
talking to Chris
the
here.
first meeting between Frank and Charlie? Have you guys? Well, we met before when we played, right?
No,
But did
we, we've met before, but
Yeah.
this is the first time I've ever interviewed him.
Yeah.
This is the first time I've ever interviewed Chris too.
Yes.
But I don't consider it an interview. I consider it just we're talking.
Yeah.
We're kind of
Right.
we're having fun. How are you?
I'm well. I really appreciate you guys having me.
Oh, dude, it's my pleasure. Are you excited? Like, Chris and I were talking about getting back out there and doing shows, and I know the first show that we play, you guys are also doing the same festival.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I knew that we were doing a couple of festivals at some point. I didn't know exactly which ones.
Yeah, the
but
one next week in Wisconsin.
Oh, great. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I can't even put into words how much I'm looking forward to getting on stage again, and getting back in that whole routine of, being with the guys on the bus and walking to the stage and playing the show and, everything that comes with it. It's just like I've missed it so much in the last year. So yeah, I can't wait. I'm just so glad. I'm so glad it's happened.
Yeah, I'm so glad too. The thing I was mentioning to Chris before is the excitement and the adrenaline that's going to be going through us all. How are you going to control it? Because I'm going to have a hard time controlling it. Chris, you know what I'm talking about. I said to Chris, we're playing like 60 minutes or so, and I'm going to finish it in 30. So how do you control that? How do you bring it back,
Well, well, first of all, we do songs to click, so that'll help. There'll at least be that thing that's always in your ear saying, hey, this is the tempo right here. I don't care.
You can't
I don't
run
care
away.
what your adrenaline. Yeah, I don't care what your adrenaline is telling you. This is the way it's supposed to be, so that helps. And I'm more worried about just being wiped out after the first couple songs, of just being like out of gig shape, And that feeling when you have a break from a tour or whatever, and then you get back on stage after having had a break and you go for it, and like all of a sudden after the second or third song, you're just like, oh my God, I've got to do another hour of this. How am I gonna do this? And then of course after a few shows, you kind of get your feet back under you, and so and I'm just worried about ring rust. You know what I mean? Just like that whole thing of like, because you can practice all you want at home, but practicing at home and doing shows are completely different things,
Two different things.
Yes, completely. So, but I'm so excited that I don't care. It's like none of those things are worrying me, just because it's like I just cannot wait to get back in front of an audience again.
I know. I think we're all in agreement that is the thing that we've been looking for over a year now. So take me back to the days of when you first met Chris. How did you guys meet?
Well, the first time I remember meeting Chris was he came to a show when Rich and I were playing in Stuck Mojo, and we were opening for Testament.
Right.
And yeah, and we were playing in Florida, I believe, somewhere.
Orlando,
yeah, in Orlando. And Chris had told us subsequently that he had a friend. He told a friend he was going to see Testament, and his friend said, "Well, you got to go early and check out this band called Stuck Mojo because they're really good and you'll like them." And he did, and liked the band, and he liked the fact that we had little wrestling figurines on Rich's ankle. He had a whole line of like wrestling dolls on his ankle. He's like, okay, so this guy's I can relate to this guy, and that was the first time I met him. And he and Rich became really good friends. And, we kind of more became buddies as we started actually working together. They had more of the kind of instant friend connection because I don't make friends. I don't have any friends. So I'm the guy that after the show like disappears and doesn't talk to anybody, and just like goes off on his own. So Rich and Chris and I didn't really become friends until we actually kind of started working together.
Yeah, it's been 21 years, and we now exchanged each other's phone numbers about 6 months ago.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
I just recently learned his last name.
No, I mean, Frank is kind of a quiet guy. He's a naturally shy guy, but he's also just a sweetheart, just one of my favorite people. But once again, it's not like we talk a lot, and I'm sure you have this, Charlie, with some of the guys in your band. We don't talk a lot off tour. Like once in a while, we'll shoot each other a text, but Frank isn't a great texter. But especially about Kiss stuff, Kiss Animalized Uncensored video that we both watched probably 80 times, one of the greatest gigs of all time. But when we're on tour, we talk quite a bit and hang out and just shoot the breeze about different bands or movies and typical pop culture stuff. I think it's one of those things when you're on tour with someone, that's when you really get to know them. And sometimes when you go home, we all have our own families, so you don't see each other much, but it's always a blast to get back on that bus and see each other again.
Yeah, and Chris and I are the two guys that like are most likely like during a quiet moment on the road, like in the back room of the bus, just like you said, watching like the Kiss Animalized video, or you know, just like hanging out and talking about music and movies. Like he said, we're probably the more likely of anybody else on the bus to like have the. I remember when we were doing the ferry crossing and we didn't get off the bus. We were like the only two left on the bus when you're not supposed to be, and everything's shut down and dark, and it's like, you know, a 3-hour ferry crossing, and he and I are just sitting there like in the pitch black, just like shooting the breeze about, you know, this, that, and the other thing. So
yeah, those are the moments that I don't look forward to, when you get stuck on the bus.
Yeah.
the power's off, and it's like, where am I now? How do I get out of this?
Yeah,
And
Frank started freaking each other out. Like, what if this thing starts to sink? Like, we're the first ones that are going under, and we're stuck in a bus underneath. Like, we're really fucked.
yeah, I'm looking forward to doing the UK, but if I never get on a ferry again in my life, it'll be fine with me.
shit, don't pay the ferryman. Another thing I want to talk to you guys about is going in the studio. Compared to the first time you went into the studio where everything was new and you were all excited, has that kind of wore off for you guys as you made record after record, or you go in tomorrow, you're just as excited as you were the first time? Or, I mean, you're more educated about it now. Do you take more of a role of, okay, I know what to do here, you know, and not let someone else do it for you?
Go ahead, Frank.
Both of you.
Well, for me, I tend to get more excited about things once they're done and I can look back on them and listen to them. Like when it comes to the studio and it comes to playing live, like, you know, the opportunities that we've had to do live shows that were really exciting, where we were playing like a big festival or like opening for somebody, I'm always thinking in terms of what could go wrong, you know, like what's going to break on my kit? Did I tape that thing? You know, like, and so I'm a little bit more of a worrywart. I'm a little bit more of like I don't get like stage fright or anything, but I'm always constantly trying to think of, you know, is everything working right? And do I know how to make that transition? Like in the studio when I'm going to track that song, do I have that transition down? You know, am I going to be able to do it well? And is it going to trip me up and make me spend hours on it? And I'm always thinking in those terms. And, you know, whether that's good or bad, I don't know. But I tend to be more excited once it's done and then I can listen to it and just relax and listen to it. And then I get excited. And then I think, man, now I'd love to take another crack at it. You know,
Oh, yeah.
I listen to, I mean, how many things have you recorded that you listen to it and you think that's great, but oh my God, would I love to have another chance to take a crack at that?
Right. Or it's like, I remember Sting said this once. He said the way we do it is backwards.
Yeah.
We write the song, right? We rehearse the song, we go in the studio, record it, and then we take that song on the road and play it endlessly, and it gets so much better as you're playing it. So,
Right.
Chris, that's a good question. I mean, has that happened to you? The same thing, you know,
I
about
mean, it's funny. Like I always say that at the end of a tour cycle, I wish we could record the record now because you really have it locked in. And there's a lot of stuff. I mean, this record that we have in the can. I mean, Frank, I don't even know when you did the drums for it. I'm sure some of them are from probably last year. Some of those tunes, right?
It's been a little while.
What's that?
It's been a little while, yeah.
Yeah. So then you got to go back and relearn them. And there's a lot of songs you play them on the record and you never play them again and don't have any idea how they go. And there's a few songs that we already have recorded that we have a song called The Vulture Club that we're going to be playing. We're going to be rehearsing it in a couple of days. I'm like, I don't even remember The Vulture Club. Which one is that? You got to go back and oh, that's how it goes. Jeez Louise. But I think
I'm in the process of relearning that one now.
Yeah, that happens for all of us, though. But I think too, like for me to go into the studio, I'm really excited about it because I have real good command of what I want to do at this point. And Rich is very good, and our producer Johnny Anders are very good at writing really great melody lines for my voice. So it's never too high or too low. Singing low is harder than singing high. And all of it is kind of within, like, you know, it's like the Beatles with Day in the Life. You have 24 bars to get from this note to this note. Like Fozzy melody lines, you can go anywhere from here to here, and whatever you want to do, Chris can do that. So it's been a lot of fun over the last couple of years to go in the studio, because I don't write melody lines, and those guys do. So to go in there, it's like, this is all really cool stuff, but this is challenging as fuck. But I know I can do it. So let's get in there and do it. So it is a lot of fun to be in the studio now, and I really enjoy it. I didn't used to enjoy studio. I just wanted to get it over with and get it done. And now it's like, I really like to, not to get too melodramatic, but really taste some of those notes and really wrap myself around them. So when it's done, it's like, oh, that little nuance there, we have to keep that. That's really cool. I like that. Whereas in the past, you just went in there, banged it out. Okay, I hit the notes. Fuck it. Let's go. It's different now.
Right. So now these days you embrace it more than you did back in the past. I mean, and that's the thing, because maybe it was like myself, I was nervous, and I was always like, okay, I want to do the best I possibly could. And, you know, how do I achieve that? You know, and then are you always open for suggestions?
Me?
Yeah,
yeah, of course. Yeah, I am not, like, to me, I learned this a long time ago, and I think Frank feels the same. And I'm sure you feel the same too. All that matters is the song. That's all that matters. It doesn't matter who wrote it. It doesn't matter who suggests this or suggests that. All that matters is the fucking song. And when you get that through your head, your ego goes out the window. I don't care. Like this record, I wrote nothing. Every Fozzy record, I have written a lot of the lyrics, some of the lyrics, a few of the lyrics. This one, I didn't even bother, because those guys have it down. But I still have to sing those lyrics and deliver them and sell them. So it's all important. And once you get your head around that, it doesn't matter to me who makes suggestions, what's right. All that matters is what's right for the song, and the rest of it, I could care less.
I'm the same way. I am not one of those people. I am not a don't tell me how to play guy. You know, it's like, if somebody has an idea about something, I want to know what it is, and I want to, you know, I remember, I think it was on this last record, or maybe it was the first time we worked with Johnny on Judas. We were working on something drumming wise, and he had an idea, and he was like, and he was a little bit tentative about it. He was like, do you mind if I show you? We had the drums set up, and he was like, I got an idea, but I don't know how to tell you. Do you mind if I show you? I mean, would that bother you? And I'm just like, please, hand him the sticks, like, show me what you're talking about. I want to know. Because if it's something that's going to make the song better, then that's what I want to do, you know?
Yeah.
I actually really, I like opening myself to what other people, you know, what other people have to say. And because if it either is good or it's not, it either makes the song better or it doesn't, one or the other. And it doesn't matter where the idea comes from, you know, like I don't have such an ego where it's like, I hate that fill because I didn't think of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as long as I executed it, that's all that matters to me, you know?
Yeah. I agree with you on that.
Somebody gave me a tool for my toolbox that I can use. You know, that's what I want.
Because every record that you do, it's another growing experience till the next time you get there. And it's like some people will say, the only thing I remember about that record is ordering food. You know what I mean? You know, it's like, I remember what we ate during the making of that record, but sometimes, you know, you do come out of it going, wow, I totally learned a whole different approach, how to approach a song, how to approach this fill, you know. So that's the greatest thing about being a musician, when someone else gives you a little bit of that, hey, try it this way, and then you do, and it opens up your whole world, you know?
Yeah.
Well, it really is teamwork. You know what I mean? And it kind of sounds a little bit hokey, but when you're in a band, especially when you're in a band, like Frank has played on every note and been basically at every show. There was, you know, a few shows that he missed, but you bounce ideas off each other. There's respect there, and I appreciate. I remember when we opened for Maiden at the stadium in LA. It's like, should we do this song or this song? Rich and I were kind of debating. Well, who's the third guy that will ask for his advice? Well, let's ask Frank. He knows, he's been with us the whole time. He kind of knows what would work. And that's why we ended up doing, I think it was Enemy instead of Burn Me Out at that show, or Dirty Deeds or whatever it was, because Frank put his you know, his 2 cents in, because we respect that. And you need to respect your bandmates. You need to.
You have to.
You have to. You have to let, like, if you're on a hockey team, you have to let the center play center, and the left wing plays left wing, and the defenseman plays defense.
I love the way you just brought it back to hockey. That was awesome. By the way, if this thing cuts off, I don't know if they're going to cut us off at like a certain time. I do want to say I love you guys for doing this. And so many people have been writing all through this whole thing. And, we miss all you guys all over the world. Chris, I know you, Japan, South America, Europe.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just, we are coming for you all at some point,
Charlie, since we have this moment, before we get cut off, if we do, I have to tell you something. 1987, Atlanta, Georgia, the Metroplex. Does that bring back any memories?
Yes, it does.
You remember the Metroplex?
Of course I do.
I saw you guys on the Among the Living tour at the Metroplex in 1987, and subsequently after that, I saw an interview with Scott in a magazine, and it was asking, like, what's the worst venue you can ever remember playing? And he was like, the Metroplex. And I was like, yeah, I could see that, because, Chris, man, you would not believe this place. It was like, you could probably fit about 300 people in there, but they had a balcony that went around that people would balcony dive off the balcony onto the floor. And
and wasn't it by a train track outside in the back or something?
Yes. Train tracks running up. I mean, I'm talking like bad part of town. Like, don't walk around out there. You'll get shot. I mean, it's that kind of part of town. So that was the first time I saw you guys. Yeah, I had to bring that up. I'm sorry.
No, that was great. But again, I appreciate you guys doing this. Chris, I love you. Frank, I can't wait to hang when we play the big rock festival in Wisconsin. And are you guys going to be the night before, or are you getting there day of?
We have a gig the night before, so we'll be there that day. But we're playing the same day as you, both in Cadott at that rock fest and the one in Virginia at like a Potamatocomax or some shit like that. So we'll be there, man. We'll get a chance to hang out.
Is that where the Weird Hotel is?
What's that?
Is that where the Overlook Hotel is that we stayed at?
Lake Placid or some shit like that.
It was like something.
It's amazing, Charlie, some of these places that have venues. We played with Buck Cherry at some venue in upstate New York, and it was like Camp Crystal Lake. And they had a nice little theater in town, but the place we played, the hotel we're in, was the Overlook Hotel. Like, the fucking floors were even slanted. And it's like The Shining. The further we walked down the hallway, the further away the room got. Remember that, Frank? We were kind of walking
like the hall just doing like.
Are we in a different dimension? What the hell's going on here?
Yeah, it's like we're going to turn the corner and there's going to be two little girls standing there in the little blue dresses.
Exactly. Red rum.
Yeah.
But again, thank you guys for doing this. I really appreciate it. And hello to everybody out there. We miss you all, and we'll see you as soon as we possibly could. All right, guys, have a great night. Thanks again, Modern Drummer, for doing this. And don't forget to subscribe to Modern Drummer and put the code. I got to read this whole thing here. MD Charlie 1, and you get a nice discount. All right, guys, thank you again. I'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Charlie.
Don't forget that, Frank. MD Charlie 1. Write it down.
Yeah, you got
MD Charlie 1.
All right, guys, take care.
Remember it.